I was employee number 17. So there were 16 before me. I was number 17, and today I think we're into the 60s. And the more planning you can do, generally the better off at permitting you'll be, and that is a big one. We have a lot of things cooking. We're in the midst of doing another expansion here at Beck Flavors, and we're going to set up a powder operation.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Behind the Flavor, a podcast brought to you by Beck Flavors and hosted by yours truly, Michael Schubert. In this episode, we're going to go behind the manufacturing and talk a little bit about Beck and where we came from in our manufacturing journey and where we are today. We're joined today by my brother and Director of Operations and Procurement here at Beck Flavors, Doug Schubert. How you doing, Doug?
Oh, doing great. Looking forward to the pod.
Awesome. Well, we appreciate you joining us. Where we always start most of the podcasts when we have a new Beckster on is we'll jump right into how'd you get to Beck? Where was your life like before Beck in your career? And then how'd you find Beck and join the team?
My journey that brought me here to Beck started in the food industry. So one of my first jobs was working at a cheese company who did some converting. And from there, I moved on to another food company where I was doing some commodity trading before coming to Beck. So my history is all food. It's what I know, and I think that's really what led me here to Beck. But I was lucky enough to be brought in to Beck through a headhunter. So back in 2018, Beck was going through an expansion, and I was brought in at that time to be the purchasing manager. Pretty quickly after joining Beck, I was brought up to speed that there wasn't a lot of purchasing going on because we were dealing a lot with co-manufacturing at the time. But I was really here at the beginning of our manufacturing process at Beck and was able to help really build it up from the ground level.
Yeah, well, that's perfect that you say that because I did want to go, what did Beck look like when you joined? How many employees were there? And you kind of already alluded to it. We were doing a little bit of co-manufacturing at the time. So what was the landscape of Beck?
Yeah, so I was employee number 17. So there were 16 before me. I was number 17, and today I think we're into the 60s in our head count. So we've had a lot of growth over the years, and it was really a pivotal point when I came into Beck. As I said, it was 2018. The company had a future mission to bring its manufacturing under its own roof. So I was here for the start of that and really helped to get us up and running. We started our production at the Millwell site where we're shooting the pod today. And we started in a very small production room. We started producing 1 gallon a shift, and then we increased from there. We went from 1 gallon to 2 to 4, all the way up to today where we're manufacturing almost 100% of all of our items in-house.
When you say that, we're not producing 100% of the items here anymore. So what did that look like? What made Beck understand, hey, we need to not just produce here in the back of the Millwell facility, but it's time to broaden our horizons and move into a new facility?
Yeah, really what led us into that new facility was space constraints. So we were working out of the Millwell site, and we were running 2 shifts at the time. We were having internal discussions on how we get to 3 shifts. And it was at that moment when we kind of had that light bulb moment of we're running out of space. There's no 4th shift to go to, so we really needed to figure something out. So at that time, I approached Matt and Paul, had some conversations about what the future of Beck looks like in our manufacturing sense, and they let me into the fact that they were already looking for a new building at that time. So in 2019, late 19, early 2020 is when we really pushed forward with that plan. We bought the Craigshire facility in 2020, and we completed the build out and rehab in April of 2021.
What a unique period to be buying a new facility. There was a pretty big thing that happened in the world in 19 and 20 that kind of probably gave some hesitation to them too. Like, man, hopefully the world goes back, especially not being able to taste is a big side effect of what was happening with COVID. So I'm sure that kind of brought in some anxiety of its own.
Yeah, absolutely. The COVID time was a big change for all of us. I think we all live different lives now because of it. But we do like we always do. We look at each unique problem or roadblock, and we take it as an opportunity. So, we weren't the only ones impacted by COVID. That was a global pandemic that we all went through. But we take the same approach to internal problems that we have here today. We try not to look at it as a problem. We try to look at it as an opportunity. And in that sense, we did just that. We knew our competition, our customers, everybody was dealing with the same thing. So our mindset was not, how are we going to continue on? It was, how do we make this an advantage for Beck? How do we come through and show our value in this time when everybody needs it most? So we were very out front. We were open and clear with our customers on what was going on. And we really utilized it to turn it into something positive.
So let's talk about that expansion, because one of the things we're trying to do with this episode is also kind of talk through a lot of the things that Beck dealt with, that going from a facility like this in the build out and then moving to a brand new facility that's probably 4, 5, 6 times as large as this one, is kind of talking about some of the things that happened during that build out that we learned from and actually can apply in the future as well. So was the building ready to go when you guys purchased it?
The building was actually previously owned by a company that was using it as a data center. So it looked very different than what it looks like today. We essentially scraped the building back to the shell and rebuilt it for our purpose. But as we did that, we used everything we learned here at the Millwell site to build it, as you said, about 5 to 6 times the size of our previous production site, but really keeping the future in mind. So that facility is currently open, running 1 shift, but it could be expanded into 2, 3 shifts, 24/7 operation pretty easily.
So after we get through this COVID period, we're starting to do this build out over there. So that we can help out some of the people that may be going through those types of things. What were some of the issues that came up that now if we ever rebuild out a facility for any reason, these things so you can add like more prep work into it or more planning to alleviate and maybe actually get closer to an actual launch date versus a delayed launch date?
Yeah, I think you said it right there, Mike. A big part of it is planning. So that is something that we learned through our build-outs is the more time we can dedicate to planning and engineering and making sure we have the facility set up the proper way, the better off we are. As you mentioned before, delays happen, construction or others. So the more planning you can do, generally the better off at permitting you'll be, and that is a big one. And it doesn't really matter where you're at, what state, what city. The local permitting can be something that will hold up the entire project. So future planning, making sure you understand where you're going, so you can have good permitting, is definitely something that everybody should keep in mind. But really, I go back to a lot of it's the process and the people. You got to have strong processes to make sure that we have successful employees. If the process isn't there, you're really setting up the team for failure.
Moving forward from there, we finally get the building set. We go out there, we cut the red tape, everybody's hoop hopping, popping champagne, we're getting fired up. What's next, right? Like, we have to build out the team even more, right? We have all this extra space. What does that look like? What is building out the team? You keep referring to the people in the process. Let's talk about the people. How do we build out a team?
Yeah, that's probably one of our biggest challenges here, Mike. As you know, we're very close with our team, and our culture is everything to us here at Beck Flavors. So choosing our teammates is something we do very slowly. We make sure we're looking for people who have the right traits that we're looking for. So maybe not necessarily a skill or previous experience, whereas in other areas of the company, we need that experience. We firmly believe in operations, we need the right people, the right traits. We need them to be here on time. We need them to be truthful in the data that they're recording. In the way that they're making the products, but we can train for the other items that we need. So if they need to be really good at following a recipe or following a process or an order of addition, we can train all that. I can't really train you to want to be at work every day and be motivated. So that is usually what we're looking for. We do have a couple industries that we like to bring people in from. A lot of them are in the baking application. So if somebody's worked in a donut shop, if they've been a baker before or worked at a commercial bakery, those skills tend to translate really well for us here. A lot of what we're doing is weighing, mixing, compounding. So that is an area that we usually like to pull people from if we're able to. But again, I still go back to the responsibility for Beck is to provide the training so that the employees can be successful. So we're really just looking for people with the right attitude, the right mindset, and who are really team players. And we take it upon ourselves to build them up from there.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that, because in most of the episodes, if you've been following along with us, we brought a lot of our flavorists and our chemists or our application team onto the podcast. And a lot of their work's like this creative, coming up with new things, trying these new things. But kind of what you're alluding to there is you're actually looking for somebody who's going to follow a recipe. You're looking for somebody that's going to stay inside this framework of a process you put together, because if they're making something in the production facility, it needs to be made this specific way, because that's what our end customers had, was a sample of how it was made that specific way. So we need to be able to replicate that consistently.
Yeah, that's what we're all about. We're all about following a process. You know, we talk to our crew. It's very similar to like driving on the road. Your car could drive off the road. You don't need to stay between those lines and stay inside the guardrails, but they're there for a reason. You know, they're there to keep you safe. They're there to keep others safe. So we use that same analogy when we talk about our processes. These processes were built for a reason. They're not to bring burden to everybody. They're to keep the customer's product safe and the quality of the product high. So we always talk about that. We always train to those procedures. And we will train our employees on the science of the flavor. So they need to know that this chemical interacts with that chemical and maybe even produces a new chemical or compound. But we don't
kind of like in the chocolate flavors.
Exactly.
Those kind of mix together to create.
There are some technical reactions that happen inside some of those flavors. And we don't necessarily need everybody on the crew to understand that or understand why that reaction is happening, but we need to count on them to follow the process to ensure that the reaction happens the right way.
Let's kind of take it back then from there too. When we're producing a lower amount in-house and using co-manufacturers, when you were onboarded, was everybody able to make a wash? Everybody able to make an extract? Or did we only have some specialists that were doing those types of things, you know, a while back before we got to where we're at today?
Yeah, when we first started, we were very specialized and siloed. Those are the words that I like to call out there. But we've done a great job of cross-training. So we really made it our focus is to have a fully cross-trained department and even inter-department. So we cross-train from the warehouse into production and from production into quality, so that we can make sure our employees are well-rounded out. They're knowledgeable, and it really helps them to understand the process in full. And if they're unable to understand the full process, you know, maybe it's very lengthy and there's a lot to digest, but we at least want them to understand what comes before them and what comes after them. So it's crucial to us that we take care of those who supply us, so that's who comes before us, and those that we supply, so who we pass off the product to. So we talk about that internally as each department is a customer to each other. So the quality team is a customer of the warehousing team. So the warehouse brings in the product, the quality team is the ultimate customer, and we are to serve them as if we were serving any client or customer. That really helps keep our mindset accurate. We want to serve, that's our mission here, is to serve our clients and customers with the highest quality products. So to do that, we need to think of our internal team in the same exact way.
Yeah, and I really love that because we've had the theme a little bit is Beck's big thing is customer is king. And I love how you take that from our external about how we feel about our customers and then bring it internally department to department. So let's kind of segue through that. We've talked a lot of different things here, but what you're saying between all these processes and stuff, what it allows us to do is, since we are family owned and culture is so important to us, it allows you to build our schedule in a way to allow around holiday time, some extra time with our family members, as well as the benefit that it adds for our customers, being able to have a little bit of a capacity for some type of rush request because something happened, you know, a one-off where one of our customers comes to us and like, oh my God, we dropped a ball. We really need this done in 10 business days, not 15, it kind of allows us to have a gap of that too.
Yeah. We definitely put a focus on taking care of our own team. We need to make sure our employees are healthy and taking care of their families so they can be here and present when they're here at Beck. And by doing that, you know, we add some of our own internal complexity. There's no doubt about that. But we try to make sure we have some extra flex time around the holidays in December and into January. And we try to give off as much time as possible. But what we do to accommodate that is extra scheduling. So we go through extra scheduling exercises. We've run some kind of mock scenarios. If we don't have so many people in the room, what does our capacity look like? If we were to give off give extra time off to the employees for a certain period of time, could we handle that? And we do a lot of scenario planning in those times. So we always like to give a lot of time off to the crew as much as possible, but there is that balance there with our customers' orders and making sure that we fulfill those in time. And that leads into some other scenarios where we can help our customers is a floor stocking program. So that's one of the things that we have to monitor internally, just like our production schedule is our floor stocking program. So we offer that to our customers to allow them shipment of their product within 48 hours. We see that a lot with customers who utilize co-manufacturing, as they have a dedicated runtime and they have to have their flavor there at that time. So they'll usually incorporate or entertain a floor stock contract, and that just says we will always have X amount of product on the floor for them at any time. And that's been really beneficial. We've seen a lot of people take us up on that, and I think it really brings benefit to both sides.
Big theme that I've heard throughout this is planning's very important, planning and processes. So all this happening, it sounds like we should kind of touch note. You're going through this same exercise again currently, working through building out a new facility. What's on the horizon for us there?
Yeah, we have a lot of things cooking. So we're in the midst of doing another expansion here at Beck Flavors. We're taking our old production space where we used to do our liquids, as we just talked about expanding to a new site. So we're going to use that old space and we're going to set up a powder operation. So we're going to have a couple spray dryers and be able to do some advanced powder manufacturing here at Beck. So we're really excited about that. But as you said, it adds a lot more complexity. We're going back through it again. So dealing with the permitting, the engineering and all that fun stuff. But again, we've learned a lot over the years. So we feel like we're in a much better position this time. Maybe remove some of the roadblocks before we get there. And one of the biggest things that I'm excited about for this expansion, not only to own the product totally from concept to development, but to also be able to set the facility using a lot of our lean and 5S methodology. So we've been working hard on that. We have a continuous improvement team here at Beck, and that team has been working diligently to set up processes the correct way. They're looking at the powder expansion to make sure that we set ourselves up for success. So I think that's what I'm most excited about, getting into a new space and getting the opportunity to really impress all the customers who come through and visit us.
Well, what I've been most excited about was sharing the set with you. So I appreciate you stopping by, Doug, and doing an episode of Behind the Manufacturing. For all of you out there, per usual, please hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, drop some comments below on anything you would like to see in future episodes. And if you would like to reach out to Beck Flavors and request a sample or learn any more information about something you've heard in any of these episodes, you can go to www.beckflavors.com and you can hit that request a sample button and it'll come right through to us. Thanks for joining us, Doug.
Thanks. It's been my pleasure.